The Democratic Party has been pushing towards black men that they should vote for Kamala Harris, and they have also been pushing towards black women that they should also vote for Kamala Harris because she would be the first female black president, and that would give young black women, young black girls something to look up to and inspire to be able to say Kamala Harris was the president of the United States, so therefore I can also be the president of the United States. For one, she's Indian. I have nothing against her personally, and I have nothing against her race being Indian. I have a problem with the narrative they're trying to push towards black people, black men, as if they're not real men if they don't vote for her, and towards young black women as far as this is a representation of a black woman and this is what they should strive for. Before there was Kamala Harris, there was Condoleezza Rice. She held the highest position, the fourth highest position in the White House as an African American woman.
After that, I had been on the Stanford faculty when I went to become to become special assistant for national security affairs and the Soviet specialist. And it takes a little getting used to go in the Oval Office and to realize all the people that had been there. But once I had done that, it became somewhat easier to go back as national security advisor because I'd been in the White House, and then to go on to be Secretary of State because I had been national security advisor. And so, in a sense, I was fortunate that my career built one upon another, giving me an opportunity to become accustomed to those high pressure, high stakes rooms, little by little.
I'm thinking about reading about your encounter the first time you met Gorbachev when you were advising the president about how to handle the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the first President Bush said something to Gorbachev and about. I'm just wondering how you dealt with the pressure of that responsibility. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, President George H.W. Bush, I was his Soviet specialist, and we met Gorbachev, and President Bush turned to me and he said, "This is my Soviet advisor, Condoleezza Rice, and she tells me everything I know about the Soviet Union." And Gorbachev said, "Well, I hope she knows a lot." And I thought, well, thank you very much. But it was really quite a nice moment. And in fact, I felt very grateful to President Bush for that little vote of confidence.
Influence on U.S. democracy. As Secretary of State, Rice supported the expansion of democratic governments and championed the idea of transformational democracy, which sought to redistribute U.S. diplomats to areas of severe social and political trouble, addressing such issues as disease, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, and re-emphasized aids through the creation of the position of Director of Foreign Assistance. Rice helped successfully negotiate several agreements in the Middle East, including Israel withdrawal from and the opening of the Gaza border crossing in 2005, and the August 14, 2006 ceasefires between Israel and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. Rice organized the Annapolis Conference of November 27, 2007, which focused on finding a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine problem. Rice also worked actively to improve human rights issues in Iran and support the passage of United Nations Security Council resolution for sanctions against the country unless its uranium enrichment program was curtailed. Another major concern for Rice was North Korea's nuclear program and its subsequent testing of a nuclear weapon. Rice was firmly against holding bilateral talks with North Korea, although she welcomed their participation in the six-party talks between China, Japan, Russia, North Korea, South Korea, and the United States. In October 2008, one of Rice's most successful negotiations came to fruition with the signing of the U.S.-India Agreement for Cooperation Concerning Peaceful Use of Nuclear Energy, 123 Agreement, which would allow civil nuclear trade between the two countries. Shortly after her term as Secretary of State ended January 2009, she announced plans to write a book about her diplomatic career. Shortly after her term as Secretary of State ended in January 2009, she announced plans to write a book about her diplomatic career. Rice was succeeded as Secretary of State by former First Lady and New York Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. So, if you want representation of a successful Black woman in the White House that used to be in the White House, you can point to Condoleezza Rice as an example to your daughters, to young women, and to the next generation of young girls that's growing up that may have aspirations to be in politics. They can see a woman that was not only confident but also competent in her position. She was in a position where she dealt with a lot of men. So therefore, not only could she had to walk in there and gain their respect and let them know that she's there to handle business and not play around, not joke around, but actually handle business. She did that. She knew what she was doing in order to be in those positions, to be in those rooms, and actually perform her job and do her job. Unlike the vice president that we have now, who is not competent or confident in her ability to be vice president. So therefore, why would anyone think that she is confident or competent enough to be the president of the United States? She did not earn the position that she's in now to run for the president of the United States. The Democratic Party basically gave it to her. There was supposed to be a runoff where other people who wanted that position were supposed to come together, and people within the Democratic Party were supposed to vote for who they wanted to run for president. But they skipped over that and just pushed her out there, and then they're trying to get everyone to vote for her because she's Black, or because if you're not a man, protect the Black woman, and different things like that. All these catchphrases they're using towards Black people, as if Black people do not have the intelligence enough to see what's really going on. That's one of the parts that pissed me off about the Democratic Party. The disrespect that they have towards us as Black people, the disrespect they have towards us as women, and the disrespect they have towards men, as if men are not taking the lead and seeing what's best for their household, what's best for their families. And they're just they're just trying to bully men into doing what they want them to do instead of being men and actually telling us, why should we vote for Kamala Harris? What has Kamala Harris done, and what will Kamala Harris do? When you look at that picture of her and the vice president, when she had the interview, her first actual press release, she did not look confident. And if you look at the picture, she was the smallest thing in the room. It's like she I don't know how to explain it, but it's like she scrunched herself up and let everyone else shine. The reporter, when you look at the reporter who's actually doing the interview with her, she's actually taller than Kamala in the picture. And then the vice president, he's the tallest one in the room. But if you're going to be in the power position, you want to be the tallest person in the room or to appear to be the tallest person in the room. And then the clothes she had on, the brightest person in that room was the reporter. Then the second brightest person in the room was the the one who she chose for vice president when it was supposed to be her. So it's like she's letting you know with body language, I'm not confident in the position of being president. I'm not confident to be able to sit here on my own and have this conversation with the reporter. Because even if she needed his support, he didn't have to be at the table. He could have still been in the room. He could have been behind the camera, sitting on the side. No one had to know that Tim was there. But instead, she wanted him next to her, but he actually outshadowed her, which is not a good thing when you're supposed to be the ones who running for the leader of the free world. If you don't have the strength enough to sit there and sit up straight, sit tall to represent yourself, how can you sit in the room with these men? How can you sit on, if we're sitting, there's two wars going on right now that the United States is supporting in one way or another. So how can you be confident enough if you had to go meet one of these leaders? How can you, because sometimes they just want to meet one-on-one. Hey, let's come sit in this room and talk. If they call you in there, what type of conversation are you going to have with them? Are you going to strength up? Are you going to stumble over your words? Are you not going to be able to sit in those rooms with the ability to let them know I am in charge, I'm in the power position, I'm the one that's running this country? Or are you going to straight down and let them push you around, let them bully you around because you don't have enough confidence? If you can't sit there and tell the country why they should put their faith, or not faith, but why they should put their vote behind you, then how can you truly lead this country? And another thing that I wanted to address, I sent a video where someone was saying that we don't understand, as black people, we don't understand politics because we keep saying that it was her responsibility as far as the border. They stated that it was not her responsibility when it comes to the border because she's the vice president and she cannot overrule the president. That's true. She's the vice president and she cannot dictate to the president what he should and shouldn't do. But when the president says to the vice president, hey, I want you to handle this situation at the border, that means he's turning the responsibility over to you. Because if you think about it, the president chooses who he wants in his cabinet. The president chooses who he wants to work with him, because he cannot take on all the responsibility himself. So his job is getting people around him that he can point, hey, take care of this for me, hey, handle this for me. And when he sent her down to the border, that became her job. That became, part of her job. That became her responsibility. But she did not handle her responsibility. So you can't say, oh, she would take care of it once she become president. She was supposed to go down to the border, assess the situation, and see what she could do to actually rectify the situation, handle the situation better. If she needs to have more border patrol put out there, what needed to be done to take care of the situation, because she failed to do her job. One job, go down to the border. Because she failed to do that, we're dealing with what we're dealing with now.
On April the 23rd of this year. And I want you to follow that April the 23rd as I go forward. We served subsequent search warrants and we recovered very little property. Very little. We got very little evidence. They are moving their stolen goods out of the area quickly. They use different names. And their goal is they have no fear. And why do they have no fear? because we don't have a broken immigration system in the United States of America. We have a non-existent immigration system in the United States of America. Now, if you will, go with me for a few minutes. I've got to read this because it's so complex, but I want you to get an idea. Let's start with Geraldine Galano Perez. She's 33. She has a long, violent criminal history in Colombia. She comes to the United States across the Mexican border. She's a catch and release. So she enters on July the 13th, 2021. They catch her and they give her a notice to appear. And guess what? Does she appear? No. So they catch her, they give her a notice to appear, and poof, she's gone. By the way, they'll give you a plane ticket so you can fly to wherever you want to go. And that's at the taxpayer's expense. So on 12/15/22, and then again in 23, the federal judges in New York ordered her removal. On 4/23/24, that's the date we arrested her, we put her in the Hillsborough County Jail under a $32,500 bond. She bonded. She was turned over to ICE. ICE said, now keep in mind, there's an order of deportation in place. We don't have any room for her. There's an order to move her. We don't have any room to hold her. So they release her, and she's bonded. She was supposed to have a state-ordered GPS put on her if she made bond and was released. The federal government said, we don't have any GPSs. So did they hold her and refer her back or get the state to come over and put a GPS on her? Of course not. So we scrambled around, our detectives, when we heard, hey, she's about to be released because we know she is smoke in the air, she's gone. And we get an arrest warrant for her. And we put her in the Polk County Jail. Are you ready? In the Polk County Jail, she's got a $5.6 million bond. And we know exactly where she is. Because you see, we have a criminal justice system in Polk County. We have a system where we're not going to let these folks torment people in our community. She's got dozens and dozens of charges pending against her. And she is a very, very violent, dangerous person. Where her boyfriend is Milton Sierra. Now listen, follow me for a second. Geraldine and Milton. Doesn't that sound like Hispanic names to you? Just saying. Her boyfriend is 25, so she's a cougar. And he comes across with her, so he's a catch and release, where they give him a notice to appear. And he is remanded to have a GPS at some point in this process. And it's so confusing. Understand, I'm boiling this down. So does he show up for his notice to appear? Of course not. Does he ever get this GPS put on him? If he does, it's removed. He removes it. So once again, on 12/15/22, and then again in 23, the courts, the New York judge, federal judge, orders him deported. So he's arrested on April the 23rd by all of our team for this burglary, where his bond is $32,500. But he is turned over to ICE. They send him to the Chrome Detention Center. They're about to deport him, okay? He's on his way out. So we said, no. We tell the federal government, no, don't deport him. We got some really, really serious charges on him. Help us out. Help another law enforcement agency out. Well, they were more intent on helping the criminal out Did you hear what I said? I want to make that perfectly clear. ICE was more intent on helping the criminal out. I mean, there's plenty of people for them to choose to deport. They can certainly, right, find somebody else to sit in that seat to deport. So we get with our friends at Kissimmee Police Department who have a stolen property charge out of a pawn shop. They file a case against him. So he goes from Chrome back to the Osceola Sheriff's Office, where he's given another bond. As soon as he makes bond, they send him back to the Chrome Detention Center again. They're now going to deport him. And we're telling them, hey, we got a major investigation underway. Just put him on hold at Chrome. No way. They deport him. He's gone. He's pending all kinds of very serious charges here, and he's gone. Well, some people would say, hey, he's out of the country. He'll be back if he's not already. Now we don't know where he is. He may be in a gated community near you, someplace in the United States, because we know his girlfriend's here and his children's here. I don't suspect he's going to stay in Columbia very long. I don't think he'll want to come back to Polk County because his girlfriend's already shown, hey, if they get a hold of you here, they will keep you locked up the best they can. But did I mention that in the middle of all this, NYPD had arrested him for 2 felonies? And one of them, he had previously cut his GPS. So NYPD has him in custody. He'd already cut a GPS. They had orders on him. Do they grab him there? NYPD is not allowed to talk to ICE. So he's released from NYPD's felonies, and they still have charges pending on him there. Well, Jason Ruiz is 42. He says, we're all friends from our border days. At least that's his statement. On 12/30/21, he comes across the border illegally through Arizona, and he's paroled because there's no space to hold him. Then he receives, or there's one issued, I don't know that he had a forwarding address. Denver ICE does a notice to appear. Someplace in the middle of all this, and we've not been able to nail it down, he's filed for asylum. So we go on, and it's now January of 2024. Kansas Highway Patrol arrests him for DUI, and he bonds. Then he comes to Polk County. We arrest him for no driver's license, and he bonds. We report all of our arrests to ICE. Do they put a hold on him? No. I imagine Kansas reported him to ICE too. Obviously, they didn't hold him because we arrested him. The 4-6 arrest for no driver's license is how we got into this thing. And then, of course, he's arrested when we catch him with our team with the burglary in progress. Now, when we arrest him in Hillsborough County, he's given a $32,500 bond. Okay? And he bonded. He posted it. ICE looks at him and goes, hey, he's here on an asylum status, and they don't hold him when he's turned over to them. So he's out again, free. So we're scrambling around, and we arrest him in Orange County, and we ask Orange County, hey, would you put a GPS on him? Orange County, Florida says, we don't have GPSs. So we have him turned over to us. We run and file some additional charges. He makes bond again with us. We report him to ICE. They won't pick him up because he's on asylum status. We put a GPS on him, which is the most we can do. 2 days later, he cuts it and he's in the wind. He's gone. Sayonara. I don't know the Spanish version of goodbye, but anyway. Adios. So he's gone. He's in the wind. So this one is in the wind. Compliments of ice. This one's in the wind. Compliments of ice. And now we got Geller Cabezas. He's 35. He was never caught. He came across in Arizona from Mexico. He was caught in a Satka home burglary in Michigan on February of 23. He got a whole 170 days in jail for that burglary. And then he was deported to Colombia. So they gave him 170 days. We'll get him out of the country. Sounds like the system worked. He's back. How do we know he's back? Because we caught him with his buddies at the traffic stop, and he shows up April 23rd when we arrest him. He has a $32,000 bond. Now he's charged with aggravated reentry, and he's currently in the Pinellas County Jail on a federal hold. He's already pled guilty to the reentry, and he's waiting for his sentencing in September. Now, what he wants is to get deported. That's his hope. But what he didn't count on was Eric and his team, with all of the investigative resources that we provided the statewide prosecutor, of filing racketeering charges, which is a first-degree felony, subject to 30 years in prison, and conspiracy to RICO. And we've got lots of other charges on the way. But let me put this in perspective. If the fact that the southern border is not a cancer on the entire United States, the fact that the criminals are coming through the southern border with enough fentanyl that they've killed 225 or 250,000 people here, now we have these organized criminals coming through the southern border, targeting legitimate Americans, legitimate small business people, and looking for people in gated communities in nice houses with money and jewelry. And they're focusing on you next. So I want you to know, while you live behind your gated wall, in your nice house, with your security cameras, these people are coming after you too. And they're able to do that because you have a non-existent, let me say that one more time just in case you hadn't gotten it yet, a non-existent system to keep these criminals out of our country. We don't have a failed immigration program or policy. We have a non-existent program. They can't keep them out. They don't fear the criminal justice system. From the time they enter, they fail to appear. They don't intend to go by any of society's rules. And then they steal millions of dollars. And in other parts of the country, as you've heard before, they're sexually battering children. And it could all be controlled with an immigration policy that says you'll come here legally, like our victims, our Asian American victims did. You'll come here legally so we can vet you, and you're not going to come here on catch and release. And we're not going to send you to New York City, where the city there, as I understand, in the last 2 years, has spent $4.8 billion dealing with homelessness. Well, New York, get used to it. It's rule makers with that ideology that got you in that mess. It's rule makers with that ideology that got us all in this mess. We can stop this. But if we don't, you're going to continue to be victims. We're going to continue to chase these people around and do our best to keep them out of your homes and to keep them from murdering you. But quite frankly, we'd like to use these resources on our homegrown criminals. But if everybody did it the way we did it in Florida and in Polk County, their crime would be like my crime at a 50-year low.
The mayor said he didn't want to do it, but our shelter system is now so crowded, even families are getting kicked out. And although tens of thousands of people will soon be homeless, the city says it's got no choice but to evict them.
New York City now has permission to start bringing down the number of people at shelters by imposing a 60-day limit.
Right. That move impacts thousands of migrant families staying at these facilities, including the controversial one on Randall's Island.
The city says that many of these migrants are able to find a new place to live, whether that's with family or friends. But advocates say they are very concerned that this will lead to an uptick in street homelessness.
Do you have any family here?
No.
Anything to care?
I'd be alone.
So you'd be by yourself?
Yeah, it's difficult for me because my baby is too little.
The number of asylum seekers being housed is shrinking. City Hall says limits on shelter stays are being strongly enforced.
I don't call them eviction notices. I call them time limits.
It's not financially sustainable, and it's just not the right things to do. People should not be in shelters their entire lives.
The move comes after officials promised to crack down on illegal tent encampments in Randall's Island Park, many set up by migrants whose time at the city-run shelter has expired.
Shelters have always been designed to be a temporary stopgap until families can get on their feet. But without inclusive and supportive housing solutions, our shelter system will remain overburdened and our families will continue to fall through the cracks.
So the same families invited into the New York City shelter system are now being invited to leave. But even though the city has spent over $5 billion on housing since this crisis began, what these forced evictions of families tell us is that absolutely zero people have benefited from this humanitarian crisis, except whoever got the $5 billion. Yeah.
Based on everything the Democratic Party has done so far in the last 3 years, based on everything she has done, or should I say hasn't done, based on the last 3 years, why would anyone want to vote for the Democratic Party? Why would anyone want to put the Democratic Party back into the White House? Look what they're doing to children. Because of the border, they have lost children. There are children that are missing. They have no clue of where these kids are because their parents were sending them over by themselves. And then there became the responsibility of the United States because they accepted those kids. Now they don't know where those kids are. They're missing. We have criminals. We have people who want to assassinate the president, well, the former president. We have terrorists. We have all kinds of people. We have drugs. Fentanyl coming over, and we already know it's coming over by the way of China. China is getting with the cartels in Mexico, allowing these drugs to come over. We know all this is taking place, and yet the border is still open. You don't have to wait till you become president to deal with this issue. You still have time as the vice president to say, hey, let's go ahead and close the border now. Let's close the border today. As of today, no more people could come across the border, and we need to deal with the people that we already have over here. We need to make sure that they're law-abiding citizens. Florida is one of the states that did not accept these illegal immigrants. They, our governor had them, when they tried to bus them there, he turned the bus around and sent them up to New York. But you see, even though that we did not in Florida accept any of these immigrants, they're still coming over because you can't watch every single thing, especially when they're already in your country. You can't watch you don't know everybody that's driving on the highways, byways, and everywhere else, hopping on planes, coming here when they're giving them tickets. When they're just saying you can go wherever you want to go. So therefore, you don't know who's truly coming in your country, into your state once they're already in the country. A criminal is an opportunist. They look for opportunity to commit crimes. And they got, it's like United States is a free ticket. It's like, send all your criminals here. We will go ahead and accept them. That's basically what they said when they said there's an open border, and they're doing nothing to curtail the criminal activities. When they get arrested, they just let them go. They don't keep them locked up, or they send them back. What's the point of sending someone out of the country when they can just come right back in? The first thing you need to do is secure the border. Then the second thing you need to do is just round everyone up. Then at that point, you can go ahead and see who's who and send them back to their own country. But she doesn't want to do that. So why would you bank on her doing that once she becomes president? She still got time to do it now, and she refused to do it. Everything that you see going on that's associated with the border, the Democratic Party is breaking this country. They're destroying this country from within. They're like cancer to the United States of America. The Democratic Party is basically like cancer. It's destroying this country from within. And like any cancer, the first thing you need to do is get rid of it. So therefore, why would you not get rid of them from the position that they're in order to cure this country? That's what we need to think about. It's not about vote for Donald Trump, don't vote for Kamala. It's about who can heal this country, who can get this country moving in the right direction. Will it be Kamala? Will it be Donald Trump? Who will it be? So that's what you have to look at. Stop thinking about, oh, I don't like this person, or I like this person, or this is the person that's is two people I don't like, but I would rather choose this person over that. It's like you got to stop looking at it like that. Who do you feel that's out of those two who can do the best job in turning this country around? Why would you ever think it's the Democratic Party when they got the country in this position in the first place? So why would they jump ship now? They would continue for another 4 years running this country into the ground. That's what we need to think about as Christians. That's what we need to think about as United States citizens. Look at what they're doing to this country, and they don't care. Because if they did, they would have never did it. And since it's already started, they will stop it. They still got time now. They don't have to wait till the next 4 years to correct the mistake they put in place. They can start working on shutting everything down now, but they refuse to. And they know it's breaking the country. Money is just going here, 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 and everywhere. They know this, but they still are allowing people to come into this country and go where? So I would like to share this Bible verse with you again. And this is Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. So it takes a real man to prepare the next generation of men. It takes a real woman to prepare the next generation of women. It takes someone that's strong, knowledgeable, and they know how to think. They know how to analyze. They know how to reason. They're not just making moves based off emotions. They're making moves based off of facts. They're making moves based off of truth. They're doing what's right because it's right. They're looking for justice. They're not doing what someone else is bullying them into doing. You have to stand up and be men. You have to stand up and be women. Being a strong woman is not someone that's domineering. Being a strong woman is a confident woman. Being a strong woman is knowing who you are and knowing that I don't have to show my body to get respect from men. And that's the thing that you want to teach your young daughters, that I can be in a power position and still get respect from men and not have to show my body, not have to, feel like I need to twerk all over everything and everyone or have a certain vernacular. I can use my words. I can use proper English. I can do all that and still be respected as a woman, still be protected as a woman.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and Birmingham was in the late 1950s and early 1960s the most segregated big city in America. It was a place where you couldn't go to a restaurant or to a movie theater. I didn't have a white classmate until we moved to Denver when I was 12 years old. But yet, I lived in this wonderful community of educators and professional Black people. My parents were, in many ways, typical of our community. They believed firmly in education. They believed that there was nothing that you couldn't accomplish. I've always said that my parents had me absolutely convinced that even if I couldn't have a hamburger at the Woolworth's lunch counter, I could be president of the United States if I wanted to be. And so they were extraordinary people.
How did they do that? How did they shield you from this? What was it?
Birmingham was a place where, in some ways, it was so segregated that parents could shield their children from some of the harsher aspects of segregation. We had our own dance lessons. We had our own lessons in etiquette. We had our own schools where the teachers were all Black, the students were all Black. And so you could have a tremendous emphasis on achievement and on working hard. And for them and for people like them, education was really the great shield against racism. It was what would armor you against the harsher elements of Birmingham. And it worked very well in this tight knit little community. But of course, you couldn't completely shield your children from some of the ugliness of segregation. And those times were there when you had to confront it face to face.